King Herogena ruled Vidocia with an iron fist. His word was law. His gaze cold and unforgiving. The Hesitok warriors, once proud protectors of the realm, now trembled before him. Their spirits, once bright flames, flickered under his oppressive reign. Fear choked their loyalty. Resentment festered in their hearts. Herogena, blinded by his own power, remained oblivious.
I am the God King. They are mere pawns. Their purpose is to serve, to obey, to fuel my insatiable hunger for control.
He reveled in their fear, mistaking it for respect. He thrived on their obedience, blind to the growing cracks in his kingdom. The king's every whim became a decree, his every suspicion a death sentence. The dungeons overflowed with innocent souls, victims of his paranoia. The air grew thick with despair, yet Herogena remained deaf to the cries of his people. He was a king consumed by his own darkness, unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. Whispers of discontent began to snake through the shadowed corridors of the palace. The Hesitok warriors, once bound by duty and honor, exchanged wary glances. They spoke in hushed tones, their words laced with fear and anger. The king's tyranny had pushed them to the brink. Their loyalty, once unbreakable, now strained against the weight of his oppression. A once vibrant brotherhood was now fractured by suspicion.
The king's spies are everywhere. Trust has become a dangerous luxury.
Friendships wither under his oppressive gaze. The very foundations of Vidocia are crumbling.
The whispers grew louder, bolder. They spoke of rebellion, of a desperate need for change. A spark of defiance ignited in their hearts, fueled by their shared suffering. They yearned for a leader who would value their loyalty, not exploit it. They craved a king who would rule with justice, not fear. Hope, though faint, began to flicker amidst the darkness. Unbeknownst to Herogena, his reign of terror had not gone unnoticed. Persecuria, the enchanted god of justice and compassion, watched from the celestial realm. His eyes, filled with ancient wisdom, saw the suffering of Vidocia. He felt the despair seeping from the kingdom, poisoning the very air.
I've always believed in the potential of humanity, in their capacity for both great good and terrible evil. Yet, the raw anguish emanating from Vidocia strikes a chord within me.
He could not ignore the cries of the innocent, the pleas for justice. He had seen kings succumb to their own darkness before. He knew the intoxicating allure of power, the seductive whisper of absolute control, but he also knew the devastating consequences of unchecked tyranny. He had witnessed the collapse of empires built on fear, the downfall of kings who had forgotten their duty to their people.
I will not allow Vidocia to suffer the same fate. I will confront Herogena. I will make him see the error of his ways. I will remind him of the true meaning of leadership, to protect, not to persecute.
Persecuria descended upon Vidocia, his presence radiating an aura of power and authority that dwarfed even that of King Herogena. The very air crackled with energy. Fear, a foreign sensation to the god, rippled through the palace walls. Even the king, accustomed to inspiring terror, felt a tremor of unease. He found Herogena in his throne room, surrounded by the trappings of his self-proclaimed divinity. The king, startled by the sudden appearance of the god, rose from his throne, his hand instinctively reaching for the jeweled sword at his hip. But even as he did so, he knew it was futile. He was in the presence of something far greater than himself.
Herogena of Vidocia, I have watched your reign. I have seen the fear you sow, the pain you inflict. You have forgotten your duty, abandoned your people. You rule not with justice, but with tyranny.
I am the king. These people are mine to command. They will obey.
A true king rules with the consent of his people, not their fear. He protects, he guides, he serves. You, Herogena, have become a tyrant, a cancer upon this land.
The confrontation between the god and the king marked the beginning of a new chapter for Vidocia, one that would be defined by the struggle for justice and the hope for a brighter future.
Herogena, his face contorted with rage, opened his mouth to retort.
A hush fell over the throne room, thick with tension and anticipation. The king, though seething, held his tongue, wary of challenging the god further. Persecuria then gestured towards the large, ornate mirror that hung on the wall behind Herogena's throne. The mirror, usually reflecting the king's image back at him, shimmered and swirled. Then it began to show a series of scenes, each more disturbing than the last.
The mirror revealed the true state of his kingdom. he saw the faces of his people etched with fear and despair. He witnessed the brutal treatment of prisoners, the crushing poverty that plagued the land. He heard the whispered curses, the desperate pleas for mercy. The mirror did not lie, it did not exaggerate. It showed Herojna the consequences of his actions, the pain he had inflicted upon his people. It forced him to confront the reflection of the tyrant he had become, stripping away the layers of self-deception he had so carefully constructed. For the first time in his reign, doubt gnawed at Herojna's resolve. He had convinced himself that his rule was just, that his people were content under his firm hand. But the images reflected in the mirror, the raw suffering etched on the faces of his subjects, shattered that illusion. He saw the fear in the eyes of his warriors, the same men who had once pledged their lives to him. He realized, with a jolt of shame, that he had become the very thing he had sworn to protect them from: a tyrant. The weight of his actions, the sheer magnitude of the suffering he had caused, pressed down on him, threatening to crush him beneath its weight. He glanced back at Persecuria, the god's gaze steady and unwavering. There was no accusation in those eyes, only a profound sadness. It was a look that cut deeper than any blade, for it forced Herojna to confront the ugliness within himself. The seeds of doubt bloomed into a sickening realization. He had failed his people. He had betrayed their trust, abused his power. The kingdom of Vidocia, once strong and prosperous, now teetered on the brink of ruin, poisoned by his tyranny.
What have I done?
Herojna whispered, his voice hoarse with shame and regret. The words seemed to echo through the silent throne room, a stark confession of his guilt. His shoulders slumped, his gaze falling to the floor, unable to meet Persecuria's eyes. The weight of his crimes, once denied, now threatened to consume him.
You have strayed from the path of righteousness. You have allowed fear and paranoia to cloud your judgment, to poison your heart.
The god, witnessing the king's remorse, felt a flicker of hope. True repentance, he knew, was a difficult path, paved with humility and a willingness to atone for past transgressions. It demanded a complete transformation of the heart, a shedding of the old self to make way for the new. Herojna remained kneeling, his head bowed, his body racked with sobs. The king, once so proud and unyielding, was now a broken man, stripped bare by the truth of his own actions. The tears that streamed down his face were not tears of self-pity, but tears of genuine remorse. Persecuria observed him for a moment, allowing the silence to stretch, heavy with the weight of the king's confession. He knew that true change could not be forced, it had to come from within. But he also knew that even the darkest of hearts could find redemption if they were willing to seek it.
The path to redemption is long and arduous. It demands courage, humility, and an unwavering commitment to righting the wrongs of the past.
He extended a hand towards the kneeling king.
Rise, Herojna. Rise and show your people that you are no longer the tyrant who ruled through fear. Show them that you are capable of change, of becoming the just and compassionate leader they deserve.
Herojna hesitated for a moment, his hand trembling slightly. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges. The damage he had inflicted ran deep. Rebuilding trust, atoning for his sins, would require more than just words. It would demand action, sacrifice, and an unwavering commitment to justice. But as he looked into Persecuria's eyes, he saw not judgment, but a glimmer of hope, a belief in his capacity for change. And in that moment, Herojna made a solemn vow to himself, to his people, and to the God standing before him. He would earn their forgiveness. He would rebuild his kingdom on a foundation of justice, compassion, and trust. The road to redemption was long and arduous, but Herojna faced it with a newfound determination. He began by releasing the innocent souls he had imprisoned, offering them not just freedom, but also apologies and reparations for their unjust suffering. He addressed his people, acknowledging his past transgressions and pledging to rule with justice and fairness. He listened to their grievances, their fears, their hopes for the future. He no longer saw himself as their master, but as their servant, entrusted with the sacred duty of safeguarding their well-being.
My people, I come before you not as a ruler, but as a servant. I acknowledge the wrongs I have done, and I pledge to rule with justice and fairness.
The Hesitok warriors, initially wary of the king's transformation, gradually began to respond to his genuine efforts. They saw the change in his demeanor, the remorse in his eyes, the unwavering commitment to justice in his actions. Trust, once shattered, began to mend slowly, tentatively, like a delicate flower pushing its way through the cracks in the earth. Word of Herogena's change of heart spread throughout the kingdom. The fear that had once choked the very air began to dissipate, replaced by a cautious optimism. The people, starved for hope, dared to believe that their king, once lost in the darkness, had found his way back to the light.
Our king has changed. His heart is now filled with justice, and we stand by him. Narrator. Years passed. Vidocia, once teetering on the brink of ruin, flourished under Herogena's reformed rule. The king, humbled by his past mistakes, governed with wisdom and compassion. He sought the counsel of his people, valuing their opinions and perspectives. He prioritized justice, ensuring that all citizens, regardless of their station, were treated fairly and equitably. The Hesitok warriors, their faith in their king restored, once again stood as proud protectors of the realm. Their loyalty, no longer coerced through fear, flowed freely, fueled by respect and admiration for the man Herojner had become.
We protect not out of fear, but out of respect and trust.
Vidocia is our home, and we defend it with pride.
The kingdom of Vidocia, once shrouded in darkness, basked in the warmth of a new dawn. The air, once thick with fear and despair, now vibrated with hope and joy. The tale of Herogena's transformation served as a constant reminder that even in the darkest of times, redemption was possible. It was a testament to the power of forgiveness, the importance of humility, and the transformative potential of a changed heart. And so, the kingdom of Vidocia entered a new era, one marked by peace, prosperity, and an enduring trust between a king and his people. The memory of Herogena's tyranny faded into the annals of history, replaced by the legacy of a ruler who, through his own journey of redemption, had restored harmony to his kingdom and earned the enduring love and respect of his people.